No, good afternoon. I'm here with Vickie Powell, who was the president from 2008 to 2009 or
Mhm.
2009 to 2010.
I think
You
it's
were right after,
2009 to 2010.
yeah, okay, great. So when you first joined the council, the state council, were you a staff member, student, resident, or part of management?
When I first joined the New York State Council, I was a pharmacist, a staff pharmacist at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital.
Okay. And who did you meet that made you want to advance in the organization?
Well, Ted, I was from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I didn't know anyone here in the area of pharmacy. So I was lucky enough to be hired by Harvey Maldo, who actually was my mentor and even like an extended family member. So Harvey actually paid for all of the pharmacists to be members of the New York State Council. And of course, he told me to pick the New York City Society because I lived in New York City. But Harvey didn't just encourage me to join. At the time, he was president of New York State, and he put me on the nomination committee, and I knew nothing about anything, but he put me on a committee. He worked side by side with me and introduced me to all the leaders, including you, during the time that he was there. So, I was lucky enough to land at St. Luke's Roosevelt and have the best mentor ever in Harvey Maldo.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Harvey, but how many of the past presidents before you did you know and what were they like?
I many of them were like larger than life to me. So I knew quite a bit of them. So I guess I could say Bernie Mel. I was very honored to have gotten the Bernie Mel Award. I got to know Bernie Mel over the many years I was in the New York State Council. And I remember being very touched by him attending my installation, even though he wasn't very well at that time. But he said to me that he had to be there for me to be installed. Also, you, Ted, I could call you anytime. I know if I had any questions, I could ask you. I think the people before me were just so very helpful. When I think of Bruce Pleskow, Bruce put me on his committee when he was on the board before he became president, and he said that I had to do something that I knew nothing about, and I think it was Constitution and bylaws, and I think I probably reached out to you, and I reached out to others, but Bruce also put me on a committee. I think Harvey told him he had to put me on a committee, and he did. And I enjoyed working with Bruce. I enjoyed working with um, Michael Blumenfeld, who was also my boss and who was president before me, and gave me the opportunity to grow. Gave me lots of time to be involved locally on the state level as well as nationally. He always made time for me to do that. I worked with Lee and with Kim and all of them. I mean, I feel like the people who were president before me um, and even after me, I think of the people at the New York State Council as my extended family. And so I must say I've learned a lot from everyone there and the encouragement that I've received from all of the past presidents to move forward and even run for president. Because, Ted, really, I like to work in the background. I'm not the person who needs attention. So I could be on a committee. I don't have to be at the helm, but so many people pushed me, even with my being on the board of ASHP. It was not my intention to even do that. But Lee insisted that I go forward because I did work on a lot of committees on ASHE. But like I told you, I like to work in the background. I don't need pomp and
Okay.
circumstance.
What challenges did you see as a staff member or as a member, a board member, and then as a president?
Well, I must say I didn't face too many challenges because I had so much help. There were so many people who were helpful to me. I think being able to reach back and knowing when I became president, everybody reached out to me and said, you can call me anytime if you have questions. So I think I had a lot of good people. I learned from a lot of good people on the board. When I was president, I always had those people to lean on if I had questions, and they always made themselves available. So I don't think I encountered many challenges, Ted, that I can remember or recall.
Okay. Membership always seems to be an issue uh, as far back as I can remember speaking with earlier presidents. Do you remember what members wanted during your presidency?
Well, I think members really wanted to be involved. I think some people didn't have like what I had, right? I think members really want to be involved, but sometimes it's hard if you don't have someone guiding your path. Um, so I think people wanted to be involved. They wanted more time to network more, to get to know each other. Sometimes there wasn't enough time for networking because there were just so many meetings. When we, came together, the few times we came together during, you know, these big meetings that we would have. So I think people wanted more time to try to get to know each, and I think maybe they didn't know it, but I think they could benefit more if they had a mentor guiding them along the way.
Okay. How often did the board meet and where did they meet? Was it very organized? Was it very professional? Was there some camaraderie involved?
Yeah, so I think that the board might have, I think we met a lot more often back when I was president. Maybe it was 3 or 4 times a year, and we always met in Albany. And I remember there was a lot of camaraderie. I remember how we played a trick on Henry Cohen once because he was so straight-laced and we hid his luggage and he was, but I thought there was a lot of camaraderie. I really did. And I think meeting more than once or twice in one place. And I think we met more often. I can't recall, but I remember having making good friendships. So like I told you, I feel like the people are in are part of my family.
Was there any major mishaps or issues when you were president which would be useful for future presidents not to repeat?
I do think there was some um ho- oh, 1 second. Sorry, Ted. Sorry.
You
Hi, it's Vicky.
may want to mute me.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Sorry, Ted.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, I do think I think there was some conflict during the time I was coming on as president. There was conflict before me. I think that conflict eased a bit, but there was conflict, and I kind of felt like I was in the center of it because I didn't have anything against one side or the other. But I think I haven't seen that since, but there was some big conflict during that time.
Okay. Um, the annual assemblies are always a big part of the council. When you had become a member, what were the early assemblies like and where were they held?
So, they were held all. I remember going to the Poconos, and I remember going to where we had. I think we had rides in the buggy in the snow. Um, it was the Turning Stone. Oh, and my favorite place was the Sagamore. I don't think we could afford that anymore, but I think, yeah, my favorite place was the Sagamore, and we went there quite often. But I do remember going to a lot of those other places, like in the Poconos and Turning Stone, and also we also had it in Lake Placid, not one of my favorite places. I think we also had it at some other ski resort. Um, but yeah, we went a lot of different places. But my absolute favorite place was the Sagamore.
Okay. When you were president, do you remember who installed you?
Yes, of course I do. So I had just come off of being on the Council of Workforce Health and Safety for ASHP, and Eric Hola, who you probably don't know, who was one
Yes,
of
I
my
do.
he was one of my mentors, and he introduced me to Lene Mahaney when I was on a council, and Lene Mahaney and I became like extended family. I would consider her a sister. I met her family, her mother, even before she became president. And the year that I was installed as president, she was elected president of ASHP. And even though they had some sort of meeting, they allowed Lene to come and install me. So to me, it was very special, very memorable, and yeah, I would never forget that. Lene Mahaney, past president of ASHP.
Okay. When you were president of the assembly, did you find it very busy, sedate, chaotic, or some other description?
I think it was very busy. And I think as president, you want to try to get to see everyone. It could be a bit overwhelming. I mean, lucky for me, of course, my family was there. And lucky for me, uh, my coworkers from at that time I was working at New York Presbyterian entertain my family. And so they kind of said, you go ahead and do what you have to do, and we'll make sure that your family is taken care of. And so they entertained them when I couldn't be exactly there with them. I remember most people said Rick Ficto never came. He was one of the directors at New York Presbyterian, but he came for my installation. And he was one of the people who entertained my family, and they will never forget Rick because he kind of kept them occupied in case I had to do something else.
Okay. You had said that you worked on a number of committees. Did you feel you needed to work your way up to the presidency and kind of like pay your dues?
I do. I think there is value in starting at the bottom, um, looking at what's going on from the bottom up so that when you become the leader, you have an idea of how the council runs. I do think people should put in their time. I don't really think that someone should just come in and be president. I think you should work on the committee. I think you should then chair that committee. I think work on another committee or become a member of the board. But I really think starting from below, understanding the structure, appreciating the structure is important to being a good president and not just being a president and moving on. Like we understand that being a part of the council is important, and so we need to stay there to mentor the next person and be a resource for leaders that are coming up.
Now, do you think with the new generation where they like to have a lot more me time versus work time?
Yeah,
Will they be able to move the council forward?
that's a good question. Ted, I think this new generation is, and maybe we weren't good about this. They are focused on wellness and resilience, and so they will make sure that they have time for themselves. I think our generation, Ted, we did not. We kind of put our work. We worked long hours, perhaps even lost some of our vacation time. Maybe there's something to be said about taking the time for yourself. And unlike us, they have many more resources, right? They have so much more technology. We didn't have that when we were
Hmm.
president. So perhaps with technology, they might not put as much time in, but they might not have to because they don't have to write things out. They could, just use a computer and it will give them more time for that. So I'm hoping that the new generation with new ideas continue to help the council to grow. I could just say that in New York City, it's booming. There's a lot of interest. We have lots of members in New York City, and they do meaningful programs. So I think the future looks bright. I do think that they'll continue. But I think we should stay there, some of us who are the foundation and help guide them.
Okay. Any final nuggets you'd want to impart upon someone who wants to be president or new members that are coming to the organization that you'd like to tell them?
Yeah, I do think, I'm a firm believer in mentoring. And I think in order for our New York State Council of Health System Pharmacists to exist and survive, we have to mentor new and upcoming people. So I think I would tell them, look at what it is that you're interested in. Ask that person to mentor you, work with that person one on one, have frequent meetings with them, not just one meeting, maybe monthly meetings, um, ongoing until you get to the place where you want to be. So I believe mentoring is the key to success. I think we have to mentor the next generation if we want to see our organization grow. So, you know me, I love to say each one teach one. That's the thing that I believe in. I believe in mentoring. And no matter what talk I do, what subject I have to present, I will always present on mentoring. So it's a big part of who I am. And I think that it's a big part of being successful.
Okay. I thank you. With that, we will conclude this interview conversation, Zoom call.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted.
And yeah.